Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to pause for a bit as we welcome people into the webinar today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Noemi Guevara, and it's my pleasure as the Director of Alumni Engagement to welcome you to our next edition of our 49er Industry Chat. Before we start, we will let you know that this session is being recorded and a pop-up should have appeared on your screen. This will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni. We also encourage you to use our Q&A box located above or below your screen to submit any questions throughout the chat today for our guest speaker. And now it's my honor to introduce our moderator for the chat. Alice LaViolette is a double alumna, earned her degree in psychology in 1969 and 1980, and she was recognized as a distinguished alumna in 2011 for the College of Liberal Arts, and currently serves on our Alumni Council as a committee chair. Thank you so much, Alice, for moderating the chat today, and now I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Noemi. And we're really excited today to welcome Delia Fernandez, a certified financial planner, and she also is the founder of Fernandez Financial Advisory, which is an LLC, a registered investment advisory firm located in Los Alamitos. She has more than 20 years of experience providing both individuals and small business owners with financial planning and investment management services. Delia is a frequent speaker on financial issues to employee groups and also in the media. She's a regular on KPCC Radio's Air Talk with Larry Mantle. She holds an MBA from California State University in Long Beach and a Bachelor of Arts in British and American Literature from Scripps College. She teaches financial planning at UC Irvine's Division of Continuing Education, where she's also a member of the Personal Financial Planning Advisory Committee. Please welcome Delia Fernandez. Thank you, Delia.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. It's good to be talking to you today.
Yeah, you too.
So it's especially a pleasure because, you know, my MBA from Cal State Long Beach has meant a lot in my career because I came from an undergraduate in British and American literature, but it turned out that when I went into industry, not this industry, but originally in just business, corporate world, the MBA meant a lot to that corporate world and they paid for it, which was really nice. And so I took that degree at night over 4 years. But it turned out it helped me later because finance was certainly something that I was attracted to despite my undergraduate degree. And it's wound up helping me in my current position as well. So Cal State Long Beach has really been important to launching my career and helping me along the way. I'm delighted to join you.
Thanks, Delia.
So you want to talk a little bit about how I got into this business? Because it was a path, like a lot of people.
That would be an interesting way to start.
Yeah. So originally I was with a credit reporting agency, TRW's credit reporting business, which is the precursor to Experian, one of the big 3 credit bureaus. And I worked my way up to a public relations, public spokesperson role where I presented the company and its credit reporting business to the media in print and radio and television. As a result of that, I had a real interest in consumer finance. And when it turned out that if I was going to get any farther in the company, that I was going to have to go to Cleveland, Ohio and work in their headquarters. And I thought, no, I'm really a California person. I thought that I would take my corporate experience and go into high-tech public relations, which is what I did for a couple of years. But then I got laid off and I looked around and I said, well, when was I happiest? And I was happiest when I was speaking, when I was doing public speaking, talking to the public about their credit and their finances. So I decided to retool. Just like I got my MBA at Cal State Long Beach, I looked around and I had always had a catalog for UCI's certificate program in financial planning in my bottom drawer, literally in my bottom drawer. And I pulled out that schedule. I decided to go ahead and enroll in the program. And as a matter of fact, the same program that I now teach in is the program I graduated from. And I took the courses required to sit for the CFP exam. And I used that education to parlay myself into the industry. At first, I got some internships, but they didn't lead to any full-time jobs. And so I just decided to go into my own practice, hung out my shingles, so to speak, as a sole proprietor. And I am still a sole proprietor with one part-time assistant. And I help individuals decide whether they can afford to buy a house, retire, send their kids to college, help them with their investments. I do both hourly financial planning work where people come in as needed and consult me, or I also manage assets and help people with their finances for a longer period of time. And I do that in a way that is fee only, which means that I don't sell any products on commissions. I don't sell insurance. I work with clients directly, and they're the only source of my pay. It was a rather revolutionary, pioneering way to work when I got started over 20 years ago. But now consumers are understanding this concept, the concept that I act as a fiduciary on behalf of my clients, which means I put their interests ahead of my own. Don't you want everybody to do that? And I really get a kick out of helping people get through their financial goals and objectives. It's wonderful to have people come back and say, oh my gosh, thanks to you, I was able to buy the house, send my kids to college, retire when I wanted to. And how about that stock market? Isn't it doing great? So that's what I do for a living. And
So
of course, I think I mentioned I also teach in the program that I graduated from at UCI.
So Delia, there are a couple questions here. One has to do with your CEUs and how you stay current as an advisor and what the continuing education process looks like.
If you're going to get your CFP designation, which requires not only the educational component, but the exam component, and to use the certificate after your name, you have to have 3 years of experience. Once you are a CFP, it is required that you have at least 15 hours a year of continuing education. Now, as a fee-only advisor, a member of the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, the fee-only group, we double that and we say 30 hours. And I'm here to tell you that if you're in this kind of business, you've got to spend that much time just keeping up with things. What I find about it is there's always something new to learn. And I don't do taxes, so I'm not in that grind, no offense to accountants, but there's always something new to learn. Government's always putting out new laws. And so the person who's going to do well in this business is going to be somebody who enjoys maybe research, learning something new, but understanding that it applies really to helping people. That's the way I see it. Some people would see the research as helping people invest their money. I like to do that too, but I'm not going to be the one that you're going to put in a room by myself and not let me talk to clients. I want to talk to the client. I want to have that interaction. But yeah, you're going to spend 15 to 30 hours required continuing ed units every year.
And sort of piggybacking on that, Delia, how has your work really evolved throughout your career, and what kind of changes and trends have you observed over the years?
I think at the very beginning of my career, there was not a lot of consumer awareness about the industry. And it is kind of chopped up because, you know, if an individual is looking for help, do they go to their bank? Do they go to their brokerage firm like a Schwab or a Fidelity or a Vanguard, who are now all offering some kind of financial services? Or do they try to find a fee-only financial planner, or otherwise a certified financial planner? So at the beginning, it wasn't very clear what that course was. Now, consumers are not only calling and saying, are you a CFP, but are you a fiduciary, and are you fee only? So again, fiduciary is putting your client's interests ahead of your own. And I think the consumer education has gotten a lot stronger. And I think that the education programs to put people into this industry have also become stronger. It used to be it was more career changers. And now I see a lot of undergraduate programs. Cal State Fullerton folds it into an undergrad program in finance. Texas Tech is famous for having a finance program for CFPs. So it's changed a lot. I think it's become more professional and more widespread, and people have a better knowledge of it.
Thanks. What does it mean to have a registered investment advisory firm?
A registered investment advisory firm is regulated by either the state or the federal government to work on behalf of clients to invest their money. It is a pretty important thing to handle people's money, and the regulators everywhere say, oh no, you don't get to do this unless you're regulated. At a certain size, if you have less than 100 million under management, you're registered through the state in which you operate. If you have more than 100 million under management, we say under management, meaning clients have come to you and brought you their money to manage. If you're over 100 million in management, the Securities and Exchange Commission at the federal level regulates you. And you're going to find that individual advisors are oftentimes, should be registered investment advisors. Their firm may be an RIA. They may be connected, we use the initials, they may be connected to an independent brokerage firm that is an RIA umbrella. They may work for a Merrill Lynch, that they're the individual broker, but Merrill Lynch has an RIA umbrella. It is a part and parcel of how the industry has moved to a fee for assets under management instead of selling investments by commission. So more and more, whether they're working at a Merrill Lynch or they're working on their own like I am, are looking for that regular steady income. And they also know that that is the way they want to do business as a fiduciary, because RIAs are fiduciaries under law. We have to put our clients' interests ahead of our own. I know I keep saying that, but it's true of the CFP and it's true of being a registered investment advisor or an RIA firm. So we all want to be legal, and we all want to help clients with something that's pretty sensitive and pretty important, which is how they manage their money.
So what skills do you think someone needs to have to pursue a career in financial planning?
Well, I think you have to like money. And you have to like it well enough, and that sounds a little facetious, but you have to like it well enough to want to know just about everything about it. Meaning, you know, how should a client invest if they're just starting out? How should they invest if they're retired? Oh, but wait, it's not just about the investments, because to do the right thing for the client, you need to know the bigger picture. So what do I do if I have a client who has kids at home versus a client who's supporting elderly parents? So I think the skills are analytical, research-oriented, a desire to keep current, and they're also the ability to talk to a client. One way or the other, when somebody comes to you with an issue or a concern or a question, you're trying to educate them, but you might also need to persuade them to change their behavior. And it's that ability to persuade them to change their behavior that is pretty important and can take some communication skills. And sometimes you don't get the client to change right away. Maybe they have to come back and hear the story again. And we just work away at them and say, yes, we think that you need to pay down your credit cards. Yes, we think you need to save more for retirement. Yes, it would be good to start early to save for your kids' college. And yes, it is now time if you want to retire. Go ahead. That's the fun one, right? Yes, retire, please. Stop work. That's entertaining.
So we have a multi-part question, and you answered part of it when you talk about how you work with clients, but is it reviewing their finances and assessing feasible goals? Do you advise on the steps they can take to accompany these goals or accomplish these goals? Or do you simply manage their finances, which I think you also answered, but.
Yeah, I can manage their money, but the majority of it, to me, even if a client walked in and said, I just won the lotto, please manage this money, you have to put it into context to the client's needs. You know, is it just you we're supporting, or are we supporting you and your 3 kids and your grandkids? And do you have enough insurance? And I don't sell insurance, but I want to make sure they now have enough insurance to protect themselves. So even if they just want money management, and I'm not saying that's not a lot, it's a very important part of the story, we need to see their big picture, because I don't want them to put a really good lock on the front door and leave all the windows open and go on vacation. I mean, I need to make sure that their finances are in order, that I understand for sure what they need from this account, if that's what the story is. But yeah, most of the time people are calling me and saying, I want to retire in 10 years and I don't want to screw this up. Or I've got 2 kids and it's about time to save for college. Or we really want to buy a house, or we want to buy a different house, or we just received an inheritance. What do we do about this? Or sometimes people contact me and say, I'm trying to help an elderly parent with their finances because they're now going to have to go into a nursing home. How do we manage this? So those are really the connection points where I usually start out talking to a client.
Thank you. We have a question on how you prepare to speak on KPCC and what's your process to be referenced as an expert on financial issues.
Well, you first want to make sure that you don't overpromise. So, if they call me, they will say to me, here's the topic. You feel like you can talk about that? And I'll say yes, or I'll say no. Or I'll talk to the producer about exactly where are we going to go with this? Because if it's something that I deal with all day long, then I'll say, yeah, this is what I deal with. Or if they say, well, here's the topic, I used to be in public relations, any good PR person would say, yes, I can help you, or no, I can't, but let me get you a source. So that's my job, is to make sure that I first know what they want. And sometimes the producer and I will exchange ideas. And that happens quite a bit. The producer will say, well, here's the topic. And I say, well, here's 4 things I can think of off the top of my head. And they might say, oh yeah, that's really good, but can you also talk about this? And so we may be hashing it out early. And sometimes they're doing call-ins, so you just don't know what's going to come up. And you just handle that just as it comes.
Thanks. Now, how would someone find a financial planner? And is there a directory of some sort? And do you get most of your clients through word of mouth referral, or other referrals?
I get it through a variety of sources. So if like when I last was on KPCC, I think I got 25 calls. That was handy. There are 2 big professional associations in the industry that people should think about contacting, and there's 1 or 2 others. So there's certainly the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, napfa.org, for fee-only planners. Now, sometimes the concern is that those people want wealthy people so they can manage their money. There's the Financial Planning Association, or the CFP board, that they can go to. So let's make a plan.org is a good place to go. And there are a couple of other organizations that have also focused on fee-only planning. One of them is the XY Planning Network. And that is a relatively new but very important organization in our industry of fee-only planners. And there's also the Garrett Planning Network, Garrett. And feel free to ask these planners questions. Am I going to be the right fit? Are you going to be the right fit for me? I need to figure out if I can retire. And if their answer is, bring me $2 million to manage, and then I will do planning for you, that might not be for you. And so you want to find out, will they do hourly work or project work? Will they do by the plan, or do they require assets under management in order to help you? And if you have a special situation, like I work with a lot of teachers and government workers, but some planners don't, ask them, do you know what a 403B is? Do you know what the windfall elimination provision is from Social Security on a STRS pension? And if they're not comfortable with some of those details, or I'm a federal worker, do you know FERS or CSRS? If you drop some of those references and they don't know what you're talking about, just find, and maybe they know a planner who would know, so ask them, here's what I'm looking for. And the good news with using platforms like this is that you can now reach out to planners nationwide. I don't want to tell you that there are other planners outside of Southern California, right? She said jokingly. But it is true that one of the exciting changes in the industry is also a great benefit for people who want to grow a practice is you now have pretty much a national marketplace.
Thanks, Delia. And you've mentioned fee for service a lot. I know a lot of financial planners do a commission on whatever they're working on. When you talk about fee, can you kind of give us a range of what that looks like?
Sure. Fee for planning or fee for service or fee only has been a response to, you have to buy a product from somebody and you wonder if you're getting the most objective advice. If I was fee only and only paid by the client, would this person recommend an annuity for me like this other guy did? So the range of service might be somewhere on an hourly or monthly retainer basis. It might be somewhere around $150 to $300 an hour. They may give you an estimate ahead of time. I know the XY Planning Network has really revolutionized a kind of a monthly retainer for people who don't have big assets to manage, but they have some things they want to accomplish. I charge $275 an hour, and the majority of people spend an hour and a half or 3 hours with me. But everybody's a little different. And again, you want to be sure with no embarrassment to talk to the planner and say, how is it that you charge? How is it would look if I came to you with my project? And, maybe I'm thinking of spending a little less. Where would you recommend I go? Or what do you think? It's kind of an open marketplace.
Thank you. Here we have a question on can you expand on the education planning and coursework someone would need to earn to be a CFP? And can you pursue the CFP right after a bachelor's degree?
Oh, sure. Because as I pointed out, there are undergraduate programs that are also folding in CFP education, although they aren't as common. The CFP program is a series of 6 core areas of coursework. And so it takes about 2 years, 6 to 8 courses, depending on how they package them. And it covers what you might expect it to cover. Financial analysis, using your calculator to figure out problems, regulatory issues, along with economic issues, monetary fiscal policy in the business cycle, education planning, be a class on retirement, taxes, investments, estate planning, wills and trusts, and then there's a capstone program that is where you do a comprehensive financial plan. So to become a CFP, you have the financial requirement, you have the examination requirement, you have the experience requirement in order to use the CFP designation, and you have continuing education requirement of 15 hours a year, which every other year includes 2 hours of, my brain just blanked out, of code of ethics. Sorry.
We
I
have
teach
that.
it, and
Yeah.
I blanked out.
Well, there are 2 questions, but they kind of roll back on each other. One is, what do you enjoy most about what you're doing? And the other is, what is the most frustrating thing or challenge that you've experienced as a financial planner?
Well, I think the thing I enjoy the most, I think in some ways the best can also in some ways be the worst, because the best can be working with clients, but the worst can be when I see that they're their own worst enemy and they can't change. But I think everybody in industry that's regulated in any way would say, oh, the regulations can be a drag. And I think we all know that. We're in businesses where you've got, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. If a regulator comes in to review what you're doing, they want to see all those records. They want to see your agreement with the client. They want to see what you did. They want to see your communications. But it's a privilege to be in the industry, and so we are all regulated. And it could be worse. There are industries that have a lot worse regulations. So paperwork makes me crazy sometimes. But mostly I feel good about when clients come in. I pretty much feel like if I give them the right data and understand what they want to accomplish, that I think eventually I can help them understand the course or the alternatives that would be best for them. It's a little bit like going to the dentist. You know, do I need a crown? Do I want gold? Do I want porcelain? What's it going to cost? What are the trade-offs? Just like going to your doctor. How many different ways could I accomplish this goal? That's what I have to lay out for them, but I have to know enough to give them those alternatives.
Right. How have you gained the confidence with your financial planning skills when you work with clients to give them financial advice? In other words, it's one thing to plan for yourself, and another thing when someone else is relying on you for your skills. So how did you gain that confidence?
That is the biggest change, because when I teach, and I teach the survey class at UCI, and so I see people who, if they're not already in the industry somewhere, they're really focused and strong hobbyist and have a strong interest in it. And I say, that's great. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take that interest and motivation, and now we're going to expand it from your profile to all these other kinds of clients. And they're like, oh, but I'm married with no kids. And I'm like, yes. And now you need to know what people who have kids are going to do to save for college. And I don't have any older parents I have to take care of. Well, now you have to figure that out. And well, but I'm married. Yes, but what about couples that come together and don't get married? And what about single people? And what about people who have children when they're 50? Or grandparents who have to adopt grandkids because the parents are no longer capable? That's the challenge. And they have to be motivated enough about money to be able to expand their interest beyond themselves and beyond their circumstances. So I think part of the motivation for me is just being able to help people. And the assurance I get, first of all, I may not tackle an issue until I get their information ahead of time. They interview me, I interview them. What's the scope of what we need to cover? I'm checking off a list in my head. Do I know that? Do I know that? Yep, I know that. Do I have software that can help with that? Yes. Oh, here's a question that I don't know that much about. Should I take on the engagement? Do I think I can research that enough? Or here's an issue that I haven't been as much up to date with, but I think I can come up to speed on. I mean, we have an obligation that when a client comes to us, maybe it's not going to be an assignment we can take on, but maybe we have a colleague we know would be the best person to take that on. And you know, that's second best, but it's still good. I can help somebody. I'm not getting paid, but I'm sending it to somebody who can take care of it. That's ideal. The client gets taken care of. That's what's important. But yeah, the confidence comes, first of all, from years, but also having that core of education that you keep up on. And that's why continuing education is important. And the irony is that sometimes just when I'm off work, I may then be flicking through Facebook groups that are financial groups, taxes and retirement. You know, one of the interesting things about social media that I really love is that the way people market themselves today is to educate people, and they educate them for free. I mean, there is a wonderful financial advisor who started this Facebook group called Taxes in Retirement. His name is Andy Panko. I hope you all go out to Facebook and join his group, or go to YouTube and watch his videos. Andy Panko, just like the product that you can put on as a crust on your food, Panko. If you talk to Andy, tell him I referred you. Watch his YouTube videos. He does a great job. And I find it kind of relaxing to scroll through and say, oh, how would I have answered that question? Or there's something on Social Security and retirement, and there's another one on boomers and Medicare. I know it's a little nerdy, but it's kind of fun to go through them. The Moneyist, I believe, there's a guy on Market Watch who does a columnist, I think it's called The Moneyist, that's on Facebook. Oh my gosh, these stories get really wild. It's kind of like the Dear Abby for the financial world. So I keep up with industry publications, with webinars and presentations by people in the industry where I get continuing ed units. And then for fun, I pick up some of these things. And we have a professional association, the Financial Planning Association. One of the largest in the country is in Orange County. And we have conferences every quarter that if you only took those, you would get your 15 hours a year that most CFPs need, that the CFP requires for that designation. So there's a lot of richness out there. And then if you're bored, just sit around and find out what Congress is thinking about doing and reading up on those bills. Might not be anybody's idea of fun, but you got to keep your ear to the ground about whether there's some changes in the tax law coming up or some changes in a stimulus program that might affect your client.
You know, how has advising changed during the pandemic, and what have you had to do to keep up with those changes and other advisors?
Well, certainly for all of us, Zoom has taken the role that, you know, it never really had before. I would have clients who would commute half an hour to come see me, and now I'm seeing them sitting on their couch in their t-shirts and shorts, you know, talking to me, which is working out well because maybe they don't need to get babysitters and other things. So the pandemic was really one of method. It was frustrating for clients who weren't as tech savvy because we had a lot of those first time Zoom meetings. And some clients aren't that familiar with sharing documents in PDF or JPEG or whatever format. So there's a little bit of that getting up to speed. But on the other hand, I've had a lot of people reach out to me from out of state who are referred by family and friends. And it's just not a limitation anymore. You know, beforehand, people might have chosen someone who was in commuting range. And now they're like, oh yeah, let's jump on a Zoom call. What do you think? Or I have a client who's relocating to New Jersey and they're doing house hunting and we jump on a Zoom call to talk about the finances. The pandemic has really mostly pushed people into technology in a way that they wouldn't have used before. And they find in a lot of ways that it works just fine.
That's all really interesting. And I think this is a question from somebody who's currently a financial advisor and their goal has been to earn their CFP. They've researched programs available at UCI. Can you kind of speak more specifically to the UCI program, specifically if instruction is also available in person?
Oh yeah, it is going to be. So we just had our group meeting of instructors with our program director last week. And it looks like we're probably going to wind up in person in the winter quarter, which starts the first week of January. They're going to roll out international and ESL programs, kind of what they call a dual presentation in the fall, where they're going to have, because international, they're going to try a combination of Zoom and in the classroom. Our international students want to be here, of course, travel is a good part of it. But we think we're going to be there in the winter quarter. But of course, you know, we've got the Delta variant, who knows? Who knows? I think that we're all waiting to find out what happens.
Okay, when you're advising small business owners, do you assist them with successor plans and the financial aspects that come with retiring as a business owner?
The retirement part of it, definitely. The successor plan, this may be where we pull in a team. And I'm looking forward, I just talked to a business owner the other day, depending on the scope of the business, you know, we may need their accountant and their attorney and their CFO and their head of operations in there to talk about this. And it might, I don't pretend to know about every industry. How would I know? So this is something that we may really need to have some experts come in and help. You know, some businesses are just mom and pop startups and they got pretty large, and other businesses are a going concern. But certainly there are issues that anybody who's thinking about continuing a business has to consider. You know, do I need some key person insurance on me or the CEO or the president to continue the business if I get hit by a truck? what's going to happen? Do I need office overhead insurance if it's a smaller concern? And what if we have to, again, the key person or key moneymaker is hit by a truck and doesn't die, they're going to be back. But in the meantime, we've got to pay our overhead. Do we have all the legal things in place? And is the owner taking advantage of how they can pull capital out of the business now through a retirement plan, a defined benefit or pension plan, so that not all of it winds up in the business as taxable income on the corporate level? These are some interesting, intriguing issues, but I count on their CPA to come in, and I have my limitations. I haven't done that with really multi-million, million dollar businesses. That's not my niche. You got to know your niche. Got to know where you belong.
You know, sort of piggybacking on that, Delia, do you as a sole proprietor, do you want to expand and become a bigger enterprise, or are you happy being a sole proprietor?
I'm happy. From time to time, I've taken in interns. I think the dilemma in our industry is the industry over the years has consolidated and grown and grown and grown. So there's a lot of pressure to be of a certain size. On the other hand, when you're of a certain size, I've had people tell me, well, now I have partners I have to report to. And if I want to retire, now I've got to negotiate with partners. Or if I want to change things, now I've got to figure this out. But of course, being able to sell your practice or merge with another practice brings you maybe a pot of money that you need to retire. I don't need that. I've arranged things so that I'm not going to need to sell the practice in order to retire. So I'm pretty okay with where I am. But the message for your listeners who are thinking about getting into the industry is that the businesses are getting larger and larger and larger, which to me means that there's more ways for you to maybe find an entry point into this industry. In fact, maybe would be a good point to show that org chart from the CFP board. I just have 3 quick pages to show if that's still available, if Cynthia wanted to upload it. Yeah, the Certified Financial Planning Board has put together, this is 3 quick looks. If you had a larger advisory firm, these are the kind of jobs that you could look at. And so people are saying, well, I don't know if I want to be the planner. Well, maybe you're really focused on the investments, and maybe that's all you're doing are the investments, or maybe you're the tax or legal or estate planning person who comes in on a team approach to help a client, or maybe you're helping run an advisory firm. I mean, that's a whole career all by itself. So I want you to see that as firms get larger, they need a lot of different components, and they're all serving the same audience. And let's take a look at the second page of this, because it shows, everybody wants to know, well, how much am I going to make? And here are some base salaries for associate advisors who are just coming in. They're going to help a senior advisor. Here's an idea if you're working for a larger firm, what kind of income you could expect to get, what kind of compensation. Somewhere between $59,000 to start up to maybe $75,000. And you can see that this is dated in 2017. Let's look at the third page. When you get more experienced, more service advisors, people who are face-to-face with a client, could certainly be making $123,000 as a base salary. This doesn't include 401k match, vacations, other perks. I can tell you that with a larger firm, I remember 2 years ago, an advisor left a small firm, went to a larger firm. She had 10 years of experience. She was hired at $140,000. Easy. I mean, easy. You're talking to clients who are bringing in money, and you're giving them really critical advice. That's the kind of thing that you need to think about, is the larger firms may be quite a big entity to maneuver through, but they also provide the compensation. Now, I think we're good with that. I know that this handout, which is quite extensive and not just the 3 pages, is available. If you want to contact the people running the seminar, they can send it out to you because it's kind of lengthy. but it gives you a sense of careers in financial planning. I think it's important to know that you've got that bandwidth, but if you wanted to go in as a sole proprietor, check out a support group like the Garrett Planning Network or XY Planning Network, because they're there to help people get into this business on their own. And the secret is that there are sole proprietors who make as much as the key people in a larger firm. We don't have the big overhead. We're more profitable by a percentage. And we don't have to put up with a lot of coworkers that we might not like. So spoken like a true sole business owner, you know, business owners are control freaks and we're in charge and we like it that way. But I want you to know that there's some flexibility if you really wanted to try to get in on your own, but I wanted you to know that there are larger firms. And I also want to give you a tip. I went out to a Facebook group called FPA Activate. Now that's for the Financial Planning Association. And this is a group of planners or people who want to get into the industry, or as one of your questioners pointed out, maybe they're in the industry, but they don't have their CFP yet. This is a group that ranges throughout. And I said to them a month or two ago, you know, I entered this business quite some time ago. What advice do you have for people today who are thinking about getting in the business? And interestingly enough, they said the same thing that my gut would tell them, is that number one, sometimes those jobs aren't advertised. So what you ought to do is reach out to people in the field. Well, how do you find them? Well, you go to the professional associations like NAPFA, like NAFA, or the Financial Planning Association. You see if you can get one-on-ones with people in the industry. You tell them about yourself, just an information interview. And this is true of any industry, right? Do that information interview, find out what their career is like, what their job responsibilities are like, and then tell them what you're thinking about. And they may or may not have a position, but you know, we all talk to each other. We may know somebody else that you ought to talk to, or we may know based on what you say you're interested in, 2 or 3 people for you to go talk to. And interestingly enough, that was the advice that these people gave, was you do information interviews, you network, you volunteer. I know that right now we're all kind of virtual on our conferences still, but the Financial Planning Association would love to have volunteer student members if you wanted to join as a student member. And that was one of the first things I did when I changed careers. So I had been in corporate public relations and marketing. And I knew based on that career that we had professional associations for PR and marketing people. So I said, well, this industry has to have them. And so I looked them up. There was one in Orange County, and I just started attending as a student member. And I showed up every meeting and I said, hi, I'm here. I'm not going away. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about the next conference. Tell me about the next educational opportunity. We had the internet, but it was certainly not, we weren't communicating as much on social media. And it was a great way to meet people and for them to get to know me. And when I hear of people who are looking for work, I often say, oh yes, I know her because she volunteers through our professional association. She's reached out to me. I know, I've worked with her. I've seen her work. She does what she says she's going to do. Yes, maybe I will recommend her as an intern to somebody else, or I will recommend her for a job to somebody. So I want to encourage people to think about that method of learning more about the industry and reaching out to advisors.
That's great advice. And actually, one of the questions is, what is the best advice you ever received and or wish you had received that you now want to share with people on this chat?
I kind of wish I had learned about the industry sooner, because I had taken a class when I was about 30 and in financial planning, but I didn't realize it was a consumer class. And I wish I had done more research on the profession itself. The worst advice I got was actually the best advice. I went to a career advisor, right? You go to get a test on what your career interests are. And at that time, I knew I wanted to do financial planning. And this career advisor said, oh no, that's a terrible industry. Don't go into that. And I walked away saying, what does she know? And I decided to go do it. The second best advice I got was from an instructor, because I went ahead and jumped into the financial planning program at UCI before I really knew where I belonged. And my investment instructor talked to me, said, you know, you're doing really well, you're getting an A in the class. And I said, well, I'm kind of concerned about the possibility of going in the industry because it all seems to be so commission based, like I have to sell a product. And he says, oh, no, there are a whole group of people who do this just on a fee only basis. They don't have to sell insurance or, you know, a stock or a mutual fund in order to get paid. And that was really good guidance. That was great because I got so excited. I said, oh, I can do this if I think that I have the same goals and objectives as my client. You know, I want to help them. They want me to help them score, you know, we're good.
So are there products over time that you have consistently been able to recommend because you've seen
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone usually if they come to me and they have any money, they usually need some kind of insurance. They need, and this sounds crazy, but I look at their auto and their renters or their homeowners insurance first. I want to see if they're adequately protected. You know, if you got in a bad car accident and somebody sued you and got a judgment against you, they could take away everything you have. So I first look at their auto and homeowners insurance. If anybody, or renters, if anybody relies on them, I'm looking for life insurance. If they're at work, I want to see if they've got disability insurance. And I don't even sell insurance and I want my clients protected. So definitely insurance. It might be that somebody's retiring and they want part of their money to be in the form of a steady stream of income. Maybe they need an annuity. I know annuities have kind of been a terrible word for some people, but and they've proven to us that you can make really abusive products. But there actually are some really appropriate annuities for the right person. So those kind of products are important. I'm not an attorney, but people often need wills and trusts. And I'm not an accountant, but they need their taxes done. So my goal is to get them the team that they need and refer them to products and service providers who are going to do a good job for them. So I kind of picture a CFP oftentimes as a team leader, project leader, team leader. Let's put the team together and let's make sure that you get help from all the people that you need. In the right way.
Thank you very much, Delia. Are there closing kind of comments that you'd like to make and anything you'd like to say to?
Yeah, I have mentioned the Financial Planning Association and the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors. I want to remind people of those Facebook groups, FPA Activate, Taxes in Retirement. I also want to give you a name that if you're really interested, like for the advisor who hasn't gotten their CFP yet, there's somebody in the industry named Michael Kitches. Now that last name is Kitces. And Michael has a wonderful podcast called Financial Advisor Success. So that's a little bit into the weeds of how somebody did well in the industry, but Financial Advisor Success is a really good podcast. And there are focus groups in the industry. There's a group of people who focus on people in the nonprofit world, and it's called, the podcast is called Teach and Retire Rich. And this is a group of wonderful people who run the 403B Wise website on, you know, corporate people have 401ks, but people in the nonprofit world may have a 403B. If you have a passion for a certain group, these guys do a great job. So 403B Wise, their Teach and Retire Rich podcast. I mean, what's more important than helping teachers, right? So there are wonderful industry resources out there. You can catch Michael Kitches's YouTube videos along with Andy Panko's YouTube videos. Or any financial podcast that you like to listen to. Morningstar does one on the long view, which is a little more technical in the weeds on investing, but follow your passion, follow your passion. If you enjoy this, come join us.
How do you believe new graduates need to prepare when entering the field, and what skills and experiences might really help them or be required for them to really thrive in your field?
I think that they should prepare by reading current events in business, reading finance blogs, reading whatever you can find, follow people on Twitter. Jeff Levine and Michael Kitchis are both on Twitter, and they have references to their articles. Michael and Jeff Levine work together. They should learn about counseling, how to talk to people. Unless you plan on just, well, if you're going to be part of a team and you're going to specialize, you really need to talk to your team members, even if you're just going to focus on investments. Read everything you can find on topics of finance. Pick up Kiplinger magazine, go out to see the FIRE movement. If you're a new graduate, there's a whole group of people who believe in retiring early. Financial independence, retire early. I know that's a little backwards. Financial independence, retire early, or the FIRE movement. There's a whole group of people like the Mr. Money Mustache website that are all about living way below your means, saving and investing, and retiring early. All of this is part of the soup. You need to be able to talk to people. You need to show a passion about the topic. And that means right now, if you're not already reading about all of this, and I'm not talking about just crypto investing, please, but a lot of 20-somethings will come into my office and say, well, you know, of course I've got my crypto, but I haven't done other investing. And I'm like, no, we need to know a little bit more than crypto to invest. So do the digging now, because when you talk to a potential advisor, they're reading all this stuff. I mean, I've got the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg up on my web tabs right now, and I'm always going back and forth on the news, or read a news feed about business, so Yahoo Finance or Google Finance. Stay in touch, because if you talk to somebody in the business, they're probably saying, "Oh yeah, I did hear they were going to have the hearing about that infrastructure deal." And is it a political discussion? Well, no, it might be one about fiscal stimulus. Congress is going to put some money into the industry, into the economy. What is that going to mean? The Federal Reserve chair just spoke. Well, what did he say? This is all a part of the soup. This is all a part of the mix. If you want to be in the world, get in the world now. You can get into it now and read articles about counseling. How do you persuade somebody to do something? How do you talk to them? How do you change people's behavior? Interesting discussions about that going on right now, right? So anyway.
There's a really interesting sort of futuristic question, which is, how have you seen the rise of robo services like Wealthfront and Betterment affect financial planning?
Yeah, what we're talking about is this computerized way to invest your money. That it's the kind of service that helps us allocate and invest people's money with great leverage of our time and experience. But it's also something, somebody's at my door. Hold on, sorry. Coming. Jeez.
Okay, so somebody's at her door. I had mentioned to Noemi and Cynthia that I would do improv while she was gone, but she's back, so I don't have to do anything.
Sorry about that. My
Thanks, Delia.
my 1 o'clock appointment came early, and I didn't want to leave clients outside. So
Gotcha.
So in any case, I think what's happening with the robo advisors is that it is almost commoditizing the investment function. So it used to be that people would come to advisors and maybe they'd pay them 1 to 1.5% a year for managing their money. And they felt like that was the only deal in town. Well, now the robo advisors are pounding down this expense, and they're maybe charging you 0.35% of your money, or 0.50, 0.5% of your money. And you're feeling like, well, I've got this taken care of. You know, the computer, which, you know, we call it a robo advisor, but a lot of advisors are using computers to allocate assets as well. So we like it on the inside. It's a very nice software product for us. But it's also something that you can get on the retail side by going to Schwab or Betterment or the other firms, Wealthfront. I think that the point there is that as investments become commoditized, it's the advice that becomes important. It's the planning that becomes important. How are you going to help put this into context? Because you can you can invest people's money, but is it invested in a way to meet their goals? Is it invested in a way to give them the cash flow that they need when they need it, right? You don't go 100% stocks if they need to take $3,000 a month out of this starting next month to live on. You need to have some reserves available and not all at risk in the stock market. So there's still some thought and planning that needs to take place. And I don't think that planning is ever going to go away, because you could have an artificial intelligence way to walk through some planning questions, you know, online. But I think human being to human being, you're going to be able to discuss some of the special circumstances, emotional concerns, risk tolerance. A lot of times people will answer a questionnaire about what their investment risk tolerance is, but then you see them in person and it goes a completely different way. So anyway.
Well, Delia, I want to thank you so much. You've given us so much information, and I love your enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I encourage everybody, it's a great field. Come on in. Join us.
Delia. Thank you, Delia. Thank you, Alice, for a great conversation. Before we go, Delia, if anyone wants to network with you, are you on LinkedIn where they could follow you?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn, and they could, although I don't post a lot on LinkedIn, so they could just email me and reach out. Delia at FernandezLLC.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for some great insights into your industry. Again, thank you for attending. If you want to follow us on social media to learn about future programs like this, or visit our website as well. We thank you for your